I was born in a small town in America, the daughter of a devoted pastor who believed that life was meant to be lived in prayer, obedience, and silence before God. Every Sunday I sat in the first row of the church, wearing modest dresses, listening to my father preach about sin and salvation, about heaven and hell, about obedience to rules that often felt like chains around my young soul. My childhood was not filled with laughter and games, but with hymns, long prayers, and warnings about the dangers of the outside world. I was taught that love was dangerous, that men were temptations, and that I must remain pure at any cost. Yet, deep in my heart, I always longed for something more, something beyond the wooden pews and stained glass windows. I wanted freedom, I wanted life, and I wanted love that felt real and alive. My father's voice thundered every night at dinner, reminding me that I was a pastor's daughter, chosen to be holy, chosen to be different, chosen to never stray. But his rules often made me cry in silence, because I was not just a daughter of a pastor, I was a girl who dreamed. When I was 18, I secretly created a small online profile, a hidden window to the world beyond the church. That is when I met him, a Muslim boy who lived in the United Kingdom, a boy with kind eyes and soft words, a boy who spoke to me, not as a preacher's daughter, but as a girl who wanted to love and be loved. And in that moment, my life began to change forever. He told me his name was Ion, and he spoke with such warmth that I felt as if sunlight had finally entered the dark corridors of my soul. We began talking late into the nights, me whispering in my room so my father would not hear, him sharing stories of his culture, his faith, and his struggles in the city of London. He told me Islam was about peace, respect, and family. He told me he admired me for being brave, enough to reach outside the boundaries of my father's control. Soon, I found myself smiling at the sound of his messages, my heart beating faster whenever I saw his name flash across the screen. I imagined him waiting for me across the ocean, a man who would understand me more than my family ever did. He promised me a life where I would be free, where love would guide us, not rules and restrictions. Every word he wrote seemed like a rope pulling me away from my father's strict church, away from the suffocating expectations of being a pastor's daughter. I wanted to escape. I wanted to breathe. I wanted to be his. So one night, with tears in my eyes and a heart full of dreams, I decided that I would leave America. I would leave behind the pulpit, the stained glass windows, the endless sermons. I would go to London, and I would meet the boy who made me believe in love. It was a decision that felt like a rebellion, but also like salvation. I bought my ticket in secret, my hands trembling as I prepared to leave everything I had ever known for the boy who promised me forever. The day I landed in London, I thought my heart would burst with excitement. The cold air hit my face, the city lights sparkled in the distance, and I believed I was finally free. Ion met me at the airport, smiling, his eyes soft, just like I had imagined. For a moment I thought I had made the best decision of my life. But soon, the truth began to reveal itself. His family was nothing like the kind words he had spoken about. They were strict, far stricter than even my father had been. His mother looked at me with suspicion. His father questioned my faith, and his brothers treated me like an outsider who had no right to belong. I thought I had escaped the chains of the church, but I found myself bound again, this time by a culture and family that demanded obedience and sacrifice. I was not the girl he had promised me I would be. I was not free. Instead, I was expected to cover myself, to remain silent, to obey rules even harsher than those I had left behind in America. My dreams began to crumble as the days turned into weeks. Ion himself was not the man I had fallen in love with online. His tenderness faded, replaced with anger when I questioned, with silence when I cried. I had left one prison only to step into another. And my soul began to wither in the shadow of the life I thought would save me. When I became pregnant with his child, I thought perhaps things would change, that maybe a baby would soften his heart and make his family accept me. But instead, it made my world even smaller. His family demanded that I raise the child as they wanted, that I abandon every trace of who I was before. I was forbidden to call my parents, forbidden to speak of my Christian upbringing, forbidden even to sing the hymns that had once comforted me as a girl. The baby's cries became my only companion, the only sound in the long nights when I lay awake, wondering how my dreams had turned into such a nightmare. Ion no longer held me, no longer whispered the words that once made me believe. He became harsh, distant, even cruel, reminding me that I had chosen this life, that I had chosen him, and now there was no way back. I looked in the mirror and saw a girl I no longer recognized, tired, broken, trapped. I had crossed an ocean for love, but love had abandoned me on the shores of despair. Still, for the sake of my child, I endured. I whispered stories of freedom to the little ears pressed against my chest, stories of a mother who once believed in love and still prayed for a brighter tomorrow. As the years passed, I began to find strength in places I never expected. Though Ion's family tried to silence me, I started to save small amounts of money in secret. I began teaching myself skills online, learning how to write, how to design, how to create a world beyond the four walls they tried to lock me in. I wanted my child to have more than I had, to know freedom even if I had lost mine. Every moment of cruelty became fuel for my determination. Every insult became a reason to rise. I remembered the strength of my father's sermons, not the rules, but the passion with which he spoke of perseverance, of faith, of fighting against despair. I clung to that strength, twisting it into my own fire. Slowly I began to build a life for myself in secret, a life no one could take from me. The pain of betrayal had carved me into someone new, someone who would no longer bow her head in silence. And though I was still trapped in a foreign land, in a family that despised me, I knew that one day I would break free, not just for myself but for the little life that depended on me. The breakthrough came when I finally found work that paid enough to move away. With trembling hands, I gathered my child and walked out of the house. That had been both a prison and a grave for my dreams. I rented a small apartment in London, small but mine, a place where I could breathe without judgment. Life was still hard, but freedom made every struggle worth it. I worked tirelessly, day and night, until slowly, success began to find me. My skills grew, my income grew, and with it, the possibility of a future I had once believed lost. For the first time in years, I laughed. For the first time in years, I sang to my child without fear of being silenced. We were poor, but we were free, and freedom was more precious than gold. As time passed, I saved enough not only to care for my child, but also to send help back to my parents in America, who had grown old and weary. I had left them in rebellion, but I returned to them with love, even from a distance. The girl who had once been a prisoner of her father's church and then a prisoner of her husband's home had become a woman who could stand on her own. Now, as I look back on my journey, I tell this story not as a victim, but as a survivor. I was the pastor's daughter who dared to dream, who dared to cross oceans for love, and who found herself betrayed by the very man she thought would save her. But in the ruins of that betrayal, I found my strength. My child is growing, healthy, and strong, and I am no longer the broken girl who cried in silence. I am a woman who has built a future out of ashes, who has turned pain into power. I do not regret my journey, because it made me who I am. I have made my family proud, supporting them when they needed me most, turning the curse of my past into the blessing of my present. My story is not one of fairy tale love, but of survival, of resilience, of faith in myself when everything else failed. If I could speak to the girl I once was, I would tell her that love can deceive, but strength never lies. I would tell her that one day she will be free, one day she will rise, one day she will not only survive but thrive. And today, as I hold my child close, I whisper the truth that saved me. We were born to endure. We were born to fight, and we were born to shine even in the darkest night.